Welcome back to Reviews with Elaine, because I have opinions. And today I'm dressed ever so slightly as a pirate, because I was supposed to go to the tour guide Pirates Ball, and then there was supposed to be bad weather, so I stayed home, and now there's no bad weather. So I'm going to record a review instead. We're going to be talking about Divergent Harmonies by S.J. Sparkle. Look! I read a romance novel! I do think it's important to every now and then read outside of your preferred genre, because A, you might have dismissed a genre that there is actually a lot in that you'll like if you just give it a chance, but also, even if it's still not your thing, you can learn things from books that are not in your genre, and also, there might be things within the book, even if its overarching thing is not what you're aiming at, that you'll still love. So Divergent Harmonies is a historical romance. We're in England in 1816. Our leads are Jack Clifton, a man with an unquiet mind. He is easily overstimulated and often suffering from traumatic memories of both the war, the Napoleonic War in this particular case, and his abusive childhood. And Anastasia Hartford, a woman who writes to deal with her loneliness and her loss of purpose that stems from the influenza that took her parents, her sister, and her own ability to bear children. They both live lives of isolation in a quiet, picturesque town in England. Jack lives behind a tall hedge that shields him and his beautiful gardens from the rest of the community. And Anna lives in a small cottage along with her beloved friend slash nurse slash maid named Lucy. Then one day they meet each other when there is a sudden rainstorm catching Anna out on the lawn with all her writing, and they have to go pick up all the pages, and Jack happens to be coming by and he goes to help and he reads a couple, and of course a connection is forged immediately. But can they actually come together despite their own trauma, the meddling of the locals, and Jack's hateful brother trying to destroy what they are building? Yes, of course they can. This is a romance novel. The question, the joy, the fun is not if they'll get together, it's how they'll get together. So, as mentioned, romance is not my genre by any stretch of the imagination. And in many ways, I feel like it honestly should be, because, I love reading a romantic subplot within a fantasy book, usually. A really cute romantic subplot will take a book from meh to brilliant for me. But when the book is just the romance, or even just focused more on the romance than on any other elements, I will admit, I get bored. My thoughts wander. I start wondering why everyone is being so dramatic and shit, and why people are acting as though whether or not they'll get together is life and death. I'm like, guys, it's just romance, calm down. And that's why I know good and damn well I am not the target market for a romance novel. I am never going to love these as much as many other people do. But that being said, this one did have a lot going on beyond the usual will they, won't they drama. The brother is a whole big thing, and both characters' trauma has to get its own addressed, and to a certain extent resolution. I do like the fact that it's not wrapped up like a pretty, package at the end. But there's a small fight scene, there's battle flashbacks, there's a tiny little chase scene, there's a fire, there's a dramatic last-minute conflict. But it's all in service of these two people who seem to be inhumanly drawn towards each other actually coming together. Both characters had full dramatic arcs, coming to terms with their past and having to deal with the ramifications in the real world. There's a lot going on. And those ramifications with the real world are one of the things I found really interesting about this book. It's very clear to me that this book was as interested in the performance and the perception of love as it was with the private emotions. So much of the book is about how the people around them will perceive their connection. For the first 50 or so pages, honestly, the only real conflict is, what if people realize we like each other? Oh my god! Which is objectively accurate enough to how humans act. I'm not judging it on being inaccurate. It's fine. But this just draws the reader's eye to the theme of the outside perception of love. But also, there are at least 5 moments in this book where a few, or a ballroom full of people just sort of stop in their tracks because it's just so striking, the visible love on the faces of our 2 leads. And I will admit, that strange credulity a bit for me. Maybe it's just me being a little bit less interested in romance than the average person, but I have never just stopped anything I was doing and stared because 2 people were so deeply in love that it felt like physical tension in the room. I've never had that experience. But while it did feel a little bit silly to me in that way, it's a really interesting examination of how performative we treat romance. Like, why are weddings such big public events? Why do people, like, do the whole, like, let's have a get down on one knee moment in front of a crowd? Why do we have kiss cams at fucking sporting events? Romance is, in many ways in our society, a performance. And if 2 people fall in love in isolation with no one there to see, are they really in love? And there's a lot going on in this book with that tension between the public aspects of love and the private emotions of love. And then there's how we get to the happy ending. I don't want to do any spoilers here, but in many ways, there's an element in the end that feels a little bit sudden, and it really took me aback for a second, but it's building on this theme of love as performance, and without giving too much away, the characters suddenly have to address what happens in their society when basically their society refuses to accept the performative aspects of love. And it's really interesting, and I really like the thoughtful aspects of what's going on with this here. And there's also just a lot going on with the individual character arcs of private versus public, like isolation versus society. And while this book definitely does see the tragedy of isolation and of, like, not being able to connect to people and not being able to communicate in the way you want to, and, like, that difficulty, there's also a focus on the calm, the warmth, and the comfort of privacy. And it's just surprisingly rare to see a book that says, hey, being introverted isn't actually a problem. You can have fun reading at home by yourself, and that doesn't make you a weirdo. I say as I'm sitting here recording a book review instead of going to a party. But sometimes you just do need that 1 or 2 good friend, and maybe that one person that you lean on to make you really happy, or in my case, that one big floofy cat to lean on to make you happy. Congratulations, yes, I'm a crazy cat lady. But now I do seriously question if the big problem that we have at the end would have been as big of a problem as this book makes it, but I don't know. There's objectively just a lot about marriage law in the past that I don't know, and things I've learned that I've been totally surprised by. And yeah, there's always been more weight put on the quote-unquote flaws of a woman than on the men, but I just wish there had been a little bit more foreshadowing when it comes to who in the town was going to be the actual problem versus who was not. Like, I did not suspect one of the characters to do what they did. And I don't think that was a good surprise. I think that was a lack of foreshadowing surprise. But other than that, I loved the random moments of devolution into pure philosophy and the subtle, not so subtle implications that the core deep kinship between the lovers stems from a sort of shared philosophy. To say it took me off guard to have a random philosophical discussion was an understatement. Like, I did not expect to find that in this book. And I think it was the right amount of philosophy for this book. Like, it didn't go so deep that I was wondering why I was suddenly in a philosophy class, but it was enough to show us the love interests connection in a way that made the love feel more like love and less like mayfly obsession or lust. I also love the way the historical aspects were used in this book. Like, was it 100% historically accurate? No. But it used its period in a really thoughtful way. Of course, there's just the obvious love of the elegance and ritual of courtship in the Regency era. Like, it's 100% clear that this author loves the clothes, loves the environments and the language, loves the slow, thoughtful, intricate way people interacted. But he's also using all these elements very thoughtfully to highlight the male lead's difficulty with social situations. There are ways in which the extreme precision of the social ritual in the Regency help Jack. Keeping people away from his home, not letting them just drop by whenever, the feeling that they can't just go over and talk to him whenever, like that element of structure and how interactions work definitely do seem to be helping him compared to what we deal with nowadays. But there are many more ways in which Jack struggles in this really regimented society. He has to directly ask how he's supposed to court someone. He has no idea. And he has to run out of events quite often because everything's just too loud, and he doesn't have a polite way to escape. But there are also elements of things, there's also something to the elements of things that are inappropriate to say and that have to go unsaid. And, like, that's also one of the things that is a huge theme in this book. There is a romance to finding that person that you don't have to directly say things to. Someone who understands you well enough that one small smile or frown or flinch is enough to have them knowing exactly what you are feeling, what's wrong, what you're thinking, or even if they don't know exactly what you're thinking or what's exactly wrong, they know that something is wrong and are willing to support you without having to know exactly what it was. And it's clear that this author knows that is an element of romance and is leaning heavily into it. There are some moments that what passes between the lovers are so, like, just the two of us that even I'm not entirely sure what moment just passed between them. But mostly it is this beautiful, like, just reading each other as if they were a book, as if they've known each other their entire lives, which, at least for my mind, is a core element of romance that is coming from someone who doesn't read much romance. One of the things I found really interesting about the ending of this book is there is so much dragging out secrets into the public. And there's a lot examining both the empathy and the lack of empathy the communities around us can lend to our internal struggles. But there are a few things that the reader knows, like it's very clear to us, but never get openly spoken between the lovers or the rest of the community. Like, there's one thing in particular that's that like really stands out in my mind, that it gets brought up, starts to be addressed, and then never gets directly addressed. And I don't think that's a problem. I think that's, like, that is an actual theme here, an idea, a choice. And I think that it's a really interesting choice, and it's definitely playing on the theme of public versus private, and what needs to be spoken and what does not need to be spoken, and this just internal trust. But it does make me question a little bit more why another element, when it gets brought out, does need to be directly addressed. And it's just a really interesting contrast there that I'm very interested in, but I do wish there'd been a little bit more on-page exploration about why the two big secrets had different interactions with the public sphere, if that makes sense. I also want to say the prose in this book is pretty damn solid. There's definitely an attempt to give us the feeling that we are reading something that was actually written in the 1800s versus reading something that was written about the 1800s. And I think it's pretty successful. It did take me a few moments to get into at the beginning to stop feeling artificial, but I think a lot of that is just the normal getting to know you kind of thing that I do at the beginning of reading every new book. But also, it's still pretty easily read. In some cases, it's actually almost a bit too easily read. Like, there are a couple of scenes that I felt like would have worked a little bit better if they'd moved slower, and more specifically, the transition from one big emotion to another big emotion The writing was so smooth reading that in those moments I was just speeding through it. And in moments like that, it's almost more useful sometimes to have the writing get ponderous and heavy so that it slows the reader down, so that the transition feels a little bit more natural and like you're going through it with them. But these are moments that I'm like, yeah, this is the correct emotional transition. This makes sense. This is a viable emotional arc. It's just the actual text could have been utilized a little bit better to just pull us along at the right speed, if that makes sense. But also, there is spice in this book, and it was fine. To keep the Regency vibe, we get a lot of heavily euphemistic language, which I just can't help but find funny. Like, I know a lot of people love it. It's pretty. It's cool. I'm just snickering like a fucking 12-year-old sitting there being like, hee 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 hee. And I know that's not what I'm supposed to be reacting. But that is a me problem, not a book problem. I'm sure other people read that little those spicy scenes. They was like, yes, yes, that is lovely. That is so romantic. And I'm just in the background snickering like a 12-year-old watching a adult movie. But overall, considering I am in no way the right reader for this book, I still really enjoyed it. It was fun, and I think that if you are a fan of historical romances, you will probably love this one. I just wish there had been dragons and an epic magic battle at the end. Is that too much to ask?